overseas now to where those 5 freed Taliban prisoners are living in Qatar. They were released last week from Gitmo in exchange for American POW Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. This is what President Obama told our Brian Williams in an exclusive interview yesterday.
We have a rule, a principle, that when somebody wears our country's uniform and they're in a war theater and they're captured, we're going to do everything we can to bring them home. And we saw an opportunity and we took it. And I make no apologies for it. It was a unanimous decision.
NBC's Ayman Mohyeldin is in Qatar for us. He joins me now on the telephone. First of all, sir, what more can you tell us about their whereabouts right now?
Well, right now their whereabouts are being tightly guarded by both the Taliban and the Qatari government. We know that they've arrived in Qatar, and there's been actually some speculation as to whether the 5 individuals were actually even in the capital, Doha, or perhaps had gone and sought refuge in homes outside of the capital. But we do understand from sources close to the Taliban that the individuals are in the country. Some of their relatives have been reunited with them from Afghanistan and elsewhere, and they've been brought here, and that the 5 individuals are actually receiving medical care, given a lot of what they endured during the 13 years in Guantanamo Bay. Now, some of the sources close to the Taliban say the men are mentally exhausted, physically exhausted. They say that they had endured a lot during those 13 years and are now going through a period of recovery and certainly going to be keeping a low profile for the next several weeks and months.
We know that they're not going to be allowed to leave Qatar for a year. What can you tell us about the condition of their digs? Where are they going to be staying? What's life going to be like for them?
Well, I think a lot of those questions are still to be answered. We do know that they will be allowed freedom of movement inside the country. They are allowed to move and travel and do whatever they want inside Qatar. You're right, they're not allowed to leave the country. But at the same time, there will be a very close supervision of their activities. They are not allowed to give media interviews, participate in any of the political organizations or meetings of the Taliban, or to really rally or perhaps even try and incite their followers and their supporters into action abroad or perhaps against the United States. Now, one of the more important developments that happened in the past 48 hours was that the Taliban itself said that they will also abide by this agreement. So they are trying to reinforce the agreement that was reached and say that these men will abide by it, they will not try to violate it, and will in fact remain in Qatar for the next year as they themselves begin the next phase of what they hope could be reconciliation efforts brokered by Qatar.
NBC's Ayman Mohyeldin for us in the capital of Qatar, Doha. Thank you, my friend. Do appreciate you.
Yep.
David Rohde is here. David Rohde, an investigative reporter for Reuters, columnist for The Atlantic, also kidnapped and held by the Taliban for more than 7 months back in 2008. We were here, we sat here some 6 days ago, you and I, and it seemed at that time that this story was going to play out a bit differently than it has. What was, I think, a somewhat patriotic event, a moment of relief for this country. How did that turn into the cover of Time magazine? Here's the cover. If an American POW was worth being released. There's I think we have the Time magazine cover. There it is right there. Was he worth it? How did that turn into this?
I think our incredibly deep political divide. This quickly became an issue about Obama and his decision, and it was sort of the latest, red meat in our politics. And I'm not taking a side in terms of, supporting or not supporting the administration, but it became hyper-partisan as every issue now, seems to become.
Do you think that the administration expected this? I mean, because we saw the Saturday evening Rose Garden ceremony. There you had the President of the United States embracing the parents of Bo Bergdahl. Had the administration known then what it knows now, do you think we would have seen that photo op even?
No, I think they totally misjudged the situation. They also, I think, misunderstood the anger in the American military, and it's understandable. I think Bergdahl needs to answer, why he apparently walked off the base, and there needs to, be some kind of investigation. But the vilification of this family and this soldier, has surprised me. Even if he deserted, even if he walked off, even if he said, you know what, I don't believe in this war, I don't believe in this administration, even if all of that is true, how much should that matter? I mean, I guess my sense is it doesn't matter if you're going to do this for a U.S. soldier. But the bigger issue here is that militant groups are kidnapping people. Bo Bergdahl, 200 Nigerian schoolgirls. It gets them publicity. It gets them hostages. It gets them over $100 million in ransom that European governments have been paying. In Israel,
4,000 prisoners.
1,000 prisoners. So what frustrates me is we're demonizing the wrong people. We're demonizing Bo Bergdahl and his family instead of focusing on the kidnappers, the Taliban. How do we counter kidnapping? And the key thing in this case, and in my personal case, and I'm biased, is that there was this safe haven the Taliban had in Pakistan. There was no pressure on the Taliban to lower their demands for Bergdahl or for me because they had the safe haven. The good news is that several countries, Colombia, Somalia, and in the Philippines, they've reduced kidnappings by regaining control of these kind of lawless areas.
That's a tall order in Pakistan.
It is, but, I don't know why there isn't more anger at Pakistan. We've given them, roughly $15 billion in military aid since 2001, and in this furor this week, U.S. officials have come forward and said that the Pakistani military didn't once look for Bergdahl, and they didn't once put pressure on the Haqqani faction, who had Bo, who had me, and there are close ties between the Haqqanis and the Pakistani military. They didn't once put pressure on them to release Bo Bergdahl.
That Time magazine article that I referenced a few moments ago, reporters write about Sergeant Bergdahl's relationship with the Taliban. Quote, military officials suggest Sergeant Bergdahl got along well with his captors. Others say he tried to escape in 2010 and from then on was shackled at night. Talk to us a little bit about the range of emotions that someone in captivity can feel.
Well, it varies all over the place. The early stage is a sense that, are you going to be killed? And it becomes clearer, again, once they get you. Bo and I were taken in Afghanistan. Once they get into Pakistan, they can hold you for years. There is no pressure on them. So then you're trying to survive. You're trying to humanize yourself, to your captors. You're talking, you're doing whatever. And, I tried to humanize myself, but I was waiting for an opportunity to escape. None of us know what happened, but it's credible to me that he tried to escape. There's one report that he tried to escape twice, and after that he received very bad treatment. So, anything, I don't want to rule out everything, but what he did in captivity, this young man was under duress, and he also, frankly, thought he was probably forgotten. I mean, this has gone on for 5 years. There was very little attention to his case, prior to this uproar. And, whatever, he made a mistake or whatever happened on that base, I've said this before, I'm sure he regrets it. He'll regret any loss of life that happened with other soldiers searching for him, and he will have this huge burden he'll carry with him for the rest of his life. I regret going to the interview that got me kidnapped. I always will regret it tremendously.
David Rode, we'll leave it there. Thank you, as always, sir, for your insight.
Thank you.
Still ahead.